What is going on, everyone? Happy week 3 and happy Valley week, because Auburn is heading to Happy Valley for a big matchup against Penn State. It's going to be a fun one, number 22 versus number 10 Penn State. Cole Cubelic here to break it down in this week's episode of Head to Head.
Oh, let's go now. Oh, now, now. Oh, let's go now. Oh, can't stop us. Oh, let's go now. Oh, now, now. Oh.
All right, so we know Cole Cubelic. He is with the SEC Networks, always covering the big game of the week. He also works for WJOX with Greg McElroy. You guys talk a lot of football, but I want to ask you first and foremost, have you ever been to Happy Valley? Me, myself, I went in 2011 against Alabama. Amazing trip. But have you ever been?
I've never been, and that was actually the only other SEC team to visit Happy Valley since Penn State entered the Big Ten in 1993, correct.
What?
Auburn has only played at a Big Ten school one other time in school history. 1931, they played at Wisconsin, a 7-7 tie.
Whoa.
It doesn't happen a whole lot. Now,
Dropping
we
the
get those
knowledge.
matchups in bowl games.
Yeah.
And obviously, we had LSU, Wisconsin a couple years ago, but that was at Lambeau.
Yeah.
We've had Alabama, Michigan, neutral site. So we've seen some of these matchups, but bowl games, neutral sites, most often. We don't get a lot of, I think since 93, only 13 SEC teams have gone and played at Big Ten stadiums. So this doesn't happen a whole lot, and this is going to be a trip. I know a lot of Auburn fans are excited to go up, be a part of it. And looks like we're going to get an exciting matchup as well.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun matchup. And as I mentioned, I was there in 2011 for the Alabama game. It was a whiteout game. And my first year covering football in the SEC, so in 2011. So as you can imagine, I was like deer in headlights, eyes wide open, like this is what football is all about. It was an awesome atmosphere, and I expect much of the same, especially in this matchup, because this is just one of the 6 teams that Auburn now will go up against on their schedule, ranked in the top 25. And I imagine they are going to obviously bring the energy, bring the noise. People are back in full effect, ready to roll this thing out, ready to roll out the carpet in week 3 of the college football season. And I think, first of all, a couple things that excite me about this matchup. Number one, Auburn is a 7-point underdog, and I think that kind of speaks volumes to what we have seen from this Auburn football team in week 1 and week 2. College game day will be at this game, so you obviously know the energy. Obviously, pick it up a bit from that. And this Penn State team, it's worth noting, coming out of the Ball State win this past week. I don't know if you saw the video on Twitter of the fans chanting, "We won Auburn." So I think there's going to be a lot of fuel going into this one. Just want to get your overall thoughts off the top, the expectations for Auburn going into this rowdy, energetic environment that they have not experienced yet since they've been at home for the first 2 weeks.
No, I think it's going to be totally different. You mentioned you get a whiteout, you get college game day. That's immediate distraction. It just is. It makes the environment totally different. And obviously the Penn State fans are going to be out there. They're going to be loud. They're going to be rooting on their team. And it's going to be a difficult place to play. No matter what the circumstances were of where you played this year, last year, whatever, this will be one of the most difficult environments for every player on that Auburn team. Penn State, a lot to be excited about. They're a little bit more tested. Ball State won the MAC last year. They're a little bit better team than a lot of people want to give them credit for. Very tough win at Wisconsin week 1.
Yep.
Now, that was a game that kind of what looked like we were watching football in 1992 with not much offense, but still, Camp Randall was amazing. Jump around was off the charts. First time you had fans back in, and they're able to go weather that storm and find a way to win that game. So Penn State probably a little bit more tested. They'll have the environment on their side, but Auburn brings a lot to the table as well. A quarterback that started a lot of games. But you can't tell me that playing in Baton Rouge, playing in Tuscaloosa, playing in Athens are not that much different than what they're going to get in Happy Valley. I mean, these guys have been tested to the point that they understand a little bit of what it's going to be like, just not this season. So I think Auburn has the ability to potentially go do what you have to do in that environment, and that's run the football. Running game and defense travels. I think Auburn brings both of those to the table. It's just going to be able to see, Lauren, can you take what you've done, how you've executed, and the mistakes that you've made, correct some of those, build upon the other things against a better opponent.
Yeah, and 2 things that really pop off to me when what you said, discipline. I think that is one thing. We talked about it in week 1. coming out of week 1, going into week 2. Coach Harsin has this team and this culture moving in a different direction.
Yep.
There's just a different feel about it. You get a different feel about where this Auburn team is in terms of their chemistry, the way they're kind of reacting with one another, and just the culture inside that program. So I think that's number 1, comes with a discipline. Number 2, running the football. 2 consecutive games with 100-plus yard performances from 2 running backs. Tank Bigsby, we knew he was going to be big time. He has obviously showed us that. And then Jarquez Hunter, he had 147 yards here in week 2. I mean, and this is a guy that's a 3-star prospect out of Mississippi. And here he goes, showing us that he's going to pound the rock, just as Tank Bigsby, 1-2 punch, run the football. I think that's going to be key for this offense.
It has to happen because you run the football, you can protect Bo Nix. It opens up play action. It makes his progressions a little bit easier. It's going to assist in protection because obviously your second-level defenders, anybody wanting to bring pressure, and even your first-level defenders, they have to be aware of you running the football. I really do believe they're going to ride Tank. I mean, it's going to be. I would not be surprised if it's 35-plus carries. I think he's that exciting. I think he's that elusive. I think he's that dynamic. And it's not that Jarquez Hunter can't bring a little bit extra. It's good that they have found someone else outside of Shivers who can maybe offload a little bit of that workload. But Tank is going to get the bulk of the work. He's going to get most of the carries. And I actually think Auburn can run the ball. I don't think the Penn State front is super athletic. Now, a little bit bigger, more physical than what Auburn has seen. But with that stretch outside zone play that they run, it really does widen the surface, and it really does give Tank Bigsby more options of where he wants to take the football. And then that's going to open up your bootlegs, your play actions, some of the RPO game, some screen games, especially going backside with your screens. And Mike Bobo's done a really nice job thus far with motions and movement pre-snap. So you're going to see all of that. And I think once that run game gets going for Auburn, it has a chance to open up everything else. Make no mistake, this game on both sides will come back down to quarterback play.
Yeah.
Because I think you have an experienced quarterback in Penn State in Sean Clifford, who's obviously going to thrive in that environment. He has a couple of guys around him that can go out and make some plays. But I think the quarterback that manages everything the best goes out and wins this game. Neither one has to have 380 yards passing and 4 touchdowns or go 26 of 29. That doesn't have to take place. Just turnovers, execution, move the chains on third downs, get into the right plays, stay in with your protection, don't bail on your teammates, run the system the way that it's supposed to be run. The quarterback that does that the best is going to win this football game.
Yeah, and right now, Penn State only giving up 11.5 points per game. I think explosive plays, running the football will be key in this. So we flip to the defensive side of the football. You talk about some of the playmakers for Penn State. In this last game against Ball State, I get it, not the greatest opponent on the planet, but they did have 7 guys that scored for them, 14 guys that got touches on the ball. So they're going to spread the ball around. They're going to do some things there. But defensively, Auburn, 11 tackles for loss in 2 games straight. They've obviously had a lot of production on the defensive side of the football behind Owen Papo, Chandler Wooten. Those guys have been proven leaders, and I feel like they are, in my opinion, tackling about as good as they can at this juncture 2 weeks into the season.
Our linebacker play has been exceptional. McClain, Papo have been amazing. Chandler Wooten's added a little bit to that. Secondary players have been good in run support. I love the way that Chandler Wooten, I love the way that a couple of guys up front have moved around along that defensive line and be able to contribute. Now, I think the interior defensive linemen have to have a big game. They have to disrupt and have to cause some problems because that's what's led to a lot of the things that you're talking about with tackles for loss for this Auburn defense over the first few games of the year. So whoever that's going to be it Tony Fair, be it J.J. Pegues, there got to be some guys inside that are problematic based on how Penn State wants to run their offense. And if they can find that, it's going to make life easier on a lot of the other guys surrounding them in that Auburn defense.
All right, as we roll into our predictions, one thing that also stands out to me about this Auburn football team and that Harsin has emphasized, special teams. I think special teams play such a big role, and a lot of times it's, it flies under the radar, but that has been something that they've really focused on in terms of getting guys in there. And we're talking about top talent guys, that he wants the guys on his roster, pretty much every guy that's on the 2 deep is in there in some capacity running special teams. And I think that's going to be important for them, especially when you get out there in front of this crowd. If you can get a good special teams play, a blocked punt, obviously Nehemiah Pritchett ran that punt back for a return, 80-yard punt return. You can get plays, generate a play or two like that. You know what that does for a team on the other sideline.
Well, you think about being on the road, and it doesn't even have to be anything that dynamic, but just a punt that's down inside the 10, or a punt return that goes back 35, 40 yards, not necessarily 80 yards to the house, but little plays like that all of a sudden can take some of the wind out of the sails of a crowd. Then all of a sudden that takes away a little bit of the home field advantage. A kick return that goes out to the 40 instead of being down in the end zone and coming out to the 25. A kick return that gets to midfield. Now all of a sudden field position is set up well. You're in scoring position if you can get a first down or two. And next thing you know, the crowd's looking at that and they're not as excited about certain things. So there are a lot of different ways, not just getting points or getting a dynamic, explosive play on special teams, that you can settle things down. You can calm things down. I mean, you down a punt inside the 10, crowd's not going to be going nuts if their team has to start on the 8-yard line coming out. Obviously, that's going to calm things down. So special teams are big. In games like this, little plays, I think this is a very even matchup. And I think these two teams are matched up fairly evenly. I expect a close game. Special teams absolutely could be the difference.
Prediction?
I'm going to go Auburn 28, Penn State 24 in this game. I think Tank Bigsby is the big difference. I think he's the most dynamic player on the field in this game. Jahan Dotson for Penn State is a guy they'll try to force feed the football to, and he can go and he can make plays. But Auburn has numbers in the secondary on the back end. I mentioned the middle of that defense. I don't think Auburn's going to have to overcommit to the run early. If they do, that's when I think Sean Clifford could become problematic, because he can break you down with his legs and he's pretty good outside of the pocket. But I just think top to bottom, Auburn's a more talented football team. They have been fairly disciplined through 2 games. They've executed fairly well through 2 games. They got to build on some of the things that they've done. But through Tank Bigsby, through a disruptive defense, I think Auburn finds a way to win this game 28-24. Or what did I say the first time? 27-24. Either one. 27 or 28-24. Auburn wins the game.
Hey, you kind of read my mind. I got Auburn pulling the upset as well. This one's going to be a close one for me. I have a 1-point game, 28-27. Auburn wins it. I don't know. We'll see who's right. Let's go.
It's guaranteed that I die a legend. Yeah, son God, homie, I'm reverend. Preach, just protecting my investment.